See, I know you guys are laughing at me, but it's funny to me. Cause to be what? To be cringe is to be free.
In this video, instead of a deep dive, we're going to take a little toe dip into the concept of cringe and explore how it's become a lens through which we process content online. On the internet, one word has come to dominate our collective lexicon of awkwardness and discomfort. Cringe. What was once a simple expression of mild embarrassment has evolved into a cultural phenomenon, which has shaped the way we view others and often ourselves. When it comes to online content today, cringe is more than just a reaction. I would say it's a genre of content in itself. Videos considered cringe tend to garner a lot of views due to a large community of people united over a shared experience of secondhand embarrassment. But I feel the internet's fascination with cringe content actually may reveal something deeper, like our anxieties and social insecurities as a collective, and quite often our harsh judgment on others with the way they choose to express themselves. Now, we've all been there, scrolling through our timeline, when we stumble on a video that makes us feel an amalgamation of awkwardness, uneasiness, and in some cases get a bit of revulsion. This makes us inclined to view the comments and likely want to express our same distaste as a form of cathartic relief. Just me? If I were to define this feeling, I'd say it's vicarious embarrassment because we see someone behaving in a way that we would deem socially awkward. Now, this could be being part of a niche subculture, over enthusiastic fandom participation, or being millennial or janks apparently. I am proud to be a millennial
with my side part and skinny jeans, and I won't be told what to wear or how to use emojis. Would you kindly shut the fuck up? Ain't nobody asked you for your opinion anyway. Here's a message from millennials to Gen Z.
Stay in your motherfucking lane. Low-key, she'll spitting bars. This happens so often online because social media invites us to share our lives, our passions, and our personalities in a way that feels very intimate and close-knit, but is actually very public, which leaves us easily open to the scrutiny of millions of strangers online. And quite often, to get more attention to their content, people tend to show the most exaggerated or unfiltered versions of themselves. But why, as viewers, do we make our feelings of discomfort the content creator's problem? Because before we left those rude and maybe a little funny comments, they were just having their weird little fun. And you know, what's wrong with that? Since when was that a crime? Unless you're actually committing crimes, then please stop. But if the content they produce doesn't have a direct negative impact on anyone, then seriously, what's the problem? Our reaction to cringe content might actually be revolutionary. Psychologists suggest that cringe is a natural response to behaviors that deviate from social norms. And as humans, we are wired to notice and reject behaviors that might have once been considered risky and taboo in social settings. It's almost a protective reaction, a way of keeping us aligned with what we have set as societal norms. Now, what does that say about us as viewers? Because cringing at someone's behavior can sometimes reveal our own insecurities. For example, a video of someone being perceived as overly confident can evoke negative and unsolicited comments calling them mid or a 3 out of 10. On the flip side, someone can gather the courage to be vulnerable just to be told they're crying for sympathy on the internet. Ever think those reactions might be because we lack the courage to express those traits ourselves, so now we project the judgment that we fear onto others? Unfortunately, cringe culture, or specifically the way content labeled as so is received online, teaches us that certain oversights are unforgivable. Like, I've seen people ripped an entire new one, I'm talking death threats and all, just for being a little annoying. But do you know who else is annoying? You, me, our families, our friends, classmates, colleagues. News flash. We've all been annoying to someone at some point in our lives, whether we meant to or not. I mean, maybe self-aware queens, kings, monarchs now, but at some point you were probably ignorant to how others perceived you. The only difference is you didn't do it on camera. I also strongly believe these feelings of cringe could be holding us back from our own potential because it taps into one of our deepest fears, social rejection. And whilst cringing is our brain's way of protecting us from being a social reject, this can quickly become a limiting force that prevents us from trying new things and expressing genuine emotions or experimenting with ideas that might be seen as unusual or vulnerable. It becomes a type of social conformity that is reinforced, where people feel pressure to stay within narrow boundaries of acceptable behavior just to avoid ridicule. But I thought true innovation and creativity often comes from breaking those boundaries and challenging the norm. So, yeah, it took me like 7 years to get back to my YouTube channel, and not because I didn't want to, like, trust me, I've been wanting to do this for 10 years now. But every time it came to recording, I had this intense fear of being perceived as cringe or annoying that would completely stop me in my tracks. So I started my channel like 8 or 9 years ago, and the videos I made were, well, they were videos. As cringe as they were, at least I was doing something I enjoyed. And whilst, any budding content creators' goal is for their videos to reach a wider audience, for me personally, the thought of anyone I knew seeing them gave me something I could only describe as crippling fear. And the thing is, no one ever had anything bad to say, probably just being nice. But on the contrary, like, they were always encouraging and supportive about it. But for some reason, all that did was deter me. I guess because it made me hyper aware that people may be perceiving me as somebody trying hard to make something work. And apparently at the time, that was like the worst possible thing to me. And I know it's never that deep. Everyone starts somewhere. We're all mere specks on a giant rotating ball. No one cares, blah, 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 blah. But like, I immediately couldn't help but become so self-critical. And in a way, I saw it as me prepare myself for the potential judgment of others. And we've seen comment sections. Some people will post something just a little silly, a little goofy, not expecting anything of it. But the next thing you know, people are stitching and reacting, and it just becomes a big mess. Then we have beautiful, joyous apps like Twitter, Instagram real comments. Like, they're so bad that on TikTok, if people don't like you, they'll tell you to post your content on Instagram reels because they know you're gonna get dragged to hell and back, and then back again. And constantly seeing people torn apart for how they look, how they sound, or even if they're being a little too enthusiastic, it just led to so much overthinking. And I felt it was safer for me to just turn off my camera, cancel my Adobe subscription. It's a bit of a price too. And hey, watch a little Riverdale.
In case you haven't noticed, I'm weird. I'm a weirdo.
Or whatever I was doing in 2018. But as my adult brain, specifically my frontal lobe, started to mature, I began to reason with myself, like, what's the worst that could happen if I made a video and it was a little bit cringe? People might laugh, they might roast me, drag me, but, like, okay. And at least I'll be doing something that matters to me. And certain reactions actually say more about the person watching than the creator. And thinking about all the creators that we love to watch, they themselves have faced some level of hate online, but that doesn't stop them from making the content that most likely had you drawn to them in the first place. And whilst perfection seems ideal, it isn't really relatable, especially if you're trying to build rapport with your audience. And I could be incorrectly speaking for others, but I think people really appreciate flaws and realness in the content they consume. I do, at least. So for those still watching, if you're out there holding yourself back because you're afraid of being labeled as cringe, let this be your sign to begin to let go of that fear. Hell, even embrace it. Like, honestly, really, when you think about it, there are like 1,000,001 things worse than being a little goofy. And I'm aware that this is not a mindset that will change overnight. It may take some time to unlearn. Like, I myself, I'm still working on this. Like, again, it took me like 8 to 9 years to get back to my YouTube channel. This very video I've been sitting on for like a year. But you'd be surprised at the amount of people who may really resonate with your quirks. Embracing cringe, or at least the parts of ourselves we think might be seen as cringeworthy, could actually be the path towards authenticity and self-discovery. At the end of the day, this isn't something that you should avoid. It's something I think should be celebrated. Because cringing at oneself is a mark of growth and a reminder that you're trying, creating, and getting better. Rejecting cringe as a negative label gives us the freedom to explore our interests without self-consciousness. And by reframing as part of the learning process, we can grow and maybe even discover that what makes us cringe is also what makes us unique. As we continue to shape and be shaped by the internet, Maybe it's worth asking ourselves, what do we lose when we label someone as cringe? Are we sacrificing empathy and understanding for a quick laugh or viral moment? There are some exceptions though. Yeah, there are some exceptions. So next time you're quick to dismiss something as cringe, think to yourself, what does this content say about the creator? But more importantly, what does your reaction say about you? Because cringe, after all, isn't just about the content, it's also about how we relate to what's normal and what feels safe in the world. If you've made this far into the video, then please give this a like. Thank you for sticking around, and remember, try to lean into the cringe a little bit. Until next time, where I'll hopefully have a better outro. Bye!